Anaphora is a common device that students tend to run into in both rhetoric and poetry, and it is valuable to have an understanding of how an author can use that to create specific effects. In plain English, anaphora is the repetition of a word or phrase that comes at the beginning of successive sentences or clauses, or in the case of poetry, at the beginning of successive lines. The effect that is created by anaphora is that it tends to emphasize key words, and hopefully, if it is used correctly, there is a certain degree of emotional pull that comes along with those words. It tends to also make lines quite memorable, as we can see from one of the examples that will come later on. And in a way, it also creates a specific rhythm or cadence to a speaker's text. So it's important to note that in English, we tend to think that sentences are more effective if they are active rather than passive. So you can see from the example, "We developed the plan" is a much more effective sentence than the roundabout version, "The plan was developed by us." So this should show you that anaphora can be particularly effective when one needs to emphasize the subject of an action. In this case, it would be the word "we." You need to be careful if you're going to actually use anaphora in speech, because it tends to be overused, and it can sound almost theatrical or perhaps even bombastic if a speaker tends to overuse it. But there are lots of examples of anaphora from famous speeches and famous poetry. If you look at Winston Churchill's example, "We shall fight in France, we shall fight on the seas and oceans, we shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air, we shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills." In case you missed it, they are going to fight. This is a very famous speech that was given in the House of Commons just before England entered the war with Nazi Germany, and it is looked upon as one of his most successful speeches, especially rhetorically. You can also look at anaphora in other poems as well. Walt Whitman is someone who tends to use it in his poetry. I've attached an example poem called "I Sing the Body Electric," where Walt Whitman uses the rhetorical device to explore an idea. The second stanza in the poem is, "Was it doubted that those who corrupt their own bodies conceal themselves? And if those who defile the living are so bad as they who defile the dead? And if the body does not do fully as much as the soul? And if the body were not the soul, what is the soul?" So he can continue to explore the idea by adding a question that starts with the same phrase over and over again to completely explore an idea. We can see this as well as Paul Muldoon's poem, "As," and he uses it in a way to the same effect. In this case, he's creating a picture for you, and by repeating "and" at the beginning of each line, he builds upon what has come before and paints a complete picture by adding to it each time. So I hope that this helps you have a better understanding of not only what anaphora is, but how it can be used to full effect.